Over the last 3 years, rent prices across the United States climbed faster and higher than ever before. From Miami to Seattle, landlords had the upper hand, increasing rents overnight with confidence that tenants would still pay. But in 2026, that trend is starting to reverse. Cities that once saw intense bidding wars are now dealing with a surge of vacant apartments. Rents are dropping quickly. Developers built too much, investors took on too much risk, and renters have reached their breaking point. Incentives like discounts and free months are returning, and the balance of power is shifting. Welcome to Discover the Cities. Today, we're counting down the top 10 U.S. cities where rents are crashing and landlords are feeling the pressure. Stay tuned for number 1. It could redefine the rental market for years to come. Number 10. Austin, Texas. Austin's rise was extraordinary, and its downturn is just as striking. Between 2020 and 2023, the Texas capital became a centerpiece of America's tech migration. The city attracted remote workers, venture capital, and billion-dollar startups leaving coastal regions, promoting itself as the next Silicon Valley. For a time, it lived up to the hype. Construction cranes filled the downtown skyline, luxury high-rises appeared almost overnight, and landlords struggled to raise rents quickly enough to match demand. But by 2025, that surge had collapsed. Average rents have dropped by 14% compared to the previous year, the sharpest decline in the entire Sunbelt. Thousands of newly built apartments from the boom now sit partially empty, with once busy amenities left quiet. Developers who once had year-long waiting lists are now offering aggressive incentives, 3 months of free rent, waived deposits, and even concert tickets to attract tenants. The reason? The tech boom finally cooled. Layoffs from major companies like Meta, Oracle, and Tesla have severely reduced Austin's high-income renter base. Once nicknamed Silicon Hills, the term now feels ironic. In downtown buildings like the Independent and 70 Rainey, vacancy rates have climbed to levels not seen in years. Meanwhile, in East Austin, once known for its creative energy, landlords are cutting rents just to compete. For those who stretched their finances, buying luxury condos at peak prices expecting endless appreciation, the losses have been massive. Returns have disappeared under the weight of high-interest loans and a shrinking pool of tenants. For renters, however, this shift marks a long overdue change. A city that quickly became unaffordable is finally adjusting, returning leverage to the people who sustain it. In 2025, Austin's situation is clear. A city that rose faster than nearly any other is now declining just as rapidly, and the effects of this downturn are spreading throughout the entire Sunbelt.
Number 9. Miami, Florida. Miami's rental surge wasn't just massive, it was overwhelming. Driven by pandemic-era migration, crypto-fueled wealth, and international investors chasing lifestyle and status, the city turned into a hotspot for billionaires and remote workers alike. Between 2020 and 2022, rents jumped by more than 60%, pushing out local residents and transforming downtown skyscrapers into symbols of excess. But by 2025, that shine has faded, and the downturn is impossible to overlook. Average rents have fallen 11% year over year, while vacancy rates are rising across Brickell, downtown, and Miami Beach. Luxury high-rises that once showcased oceanfront views and lavish amenities are now offering incentives like free parking, waived deposits, and even $2,000 gift cards just to attract tenants. And it's not only declining demand creating pressure, it's also escalating costs. Insurance premiums have tripled, putting many landlords under financial strain, while HOA fees have soared as buildings rush to comply with Florida's stricter post-collapse safety rules. As a result, thousands of investors are losing money month after month. Some developments are already sliding downward, with condos that once sold for $900,000 now priced around $700,000 or left sitting on the market. Airbnb hosts who once benefited from strong tourism are backing out as travel demand softens and upkeep expenses cut into earnings. Even foreign investors, once a key pillar of Miami's economy, are pulling back, unsettled by the city's increasing storm risks and ongoing special assessments. From the sky, Miami still appears breathtaking, with turquoise waters and a glittering skyline. But behind that beauty, the reality tells another story. By 2025, Miami has become a warning sign of overconfidence. A city that once symbolized endless growth now proves that when luxury surpasses practicality, even paradise can face a collapse. Number 8, Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta was meant to be different, a city that appeared to have it all. A thriving job market, reasonably priced housing, and an influx of people relocating from both coasts made it the South's seemingly safest bet. Developers poured billions into new apartment buildings, stretching from Midtown to Sandy Springs. Between 2021 and 2024, more than 50,000 new units hit the market, far exceeding what the city could realistically absorb. By 2025, however, that boom has turned into a bust. Rents have fallen 9% compared to the previous year. Vacancies are rising, and developers are beginning to worry. High-rises that once rented almost immediately now sit half empty. Landlords are trying every tactic to lure tenants back: 3 months of free rent, free parking, and waived security deposits. But the problem goes beyond mere oversupply. Wage growth has slowed, inflation has eroded household budgets, and student loan repayments are hitting younger renters hard. Millennials and Gen Z are doubling up, returning to family homes or leaving the metro area entirely. Even Atlanta's suburbs, once considered recession-proof, Cobb, Gwinnett, and Henry counties, are softening. Single-family rentals remain vacant, and short-term investors are cutting rents just to minimize losses. For years, Atlanta was celebrated as the future of affordable growth. Now it is a cautionary tale of imbalance, a city where construction kept rising long after demand stalled. Atlanta's rental market didn't collapse suddenly, it weakened gradually. Developers focused on luxury instead of affordability. Landlords assumed tenants would always pay more. When that expectation finally failed, the city's momentum faltered. By 2025, what was once the Sunbelt's most stable market has joined the downturn, and the climb back will be steeper than anyone expected. Number 7, Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas has always been a city of highs and lows, and right now, landlords are taking the hit. For years, the city seemed unstoppable. Tens of thousands of newcomers arrived from California, drawn by lower living costs and brighter prospects. Investors snapped up homes, short-term rentals thrived. Everyone assumed the boom would never end. But by 2025, that luck has run out. Rents have dropped nearly 10% since 2023, and vacancy rates have doubled. Whole apartment complexes in Henderson and Summerlin now sit half empty. The glittering skyline remains, but behind the sparkle lies a stark reality. Supply has far exceeded demand. Tourism, the lifeblood of Vegas's economy, hasn't fully bounced back. Casino hiring is down, conventions are smaller, and tips are no longer what they once were. Meanwhile, thousands of Airbnbs that previously hosted weekend visitors are now entering the long-term rental market as owners try to recover losses. Properties that once rented for $2,400 are now listed at $1,900 with little interest. Landlords who purchased during the pandemic surge are cutting rates just to stay afloat. Many investors who hoped for quick gains are quietly leaving, selling below what they paid to prevent further losses. Overbuilding persists. Developers are completing projects started during the peak of optimism, adding luxury units no one needs. By 2025, Las Vegas feels hauntingly similar to 2008. A different decade, the same gamble. The city overextended and sustainability was overlooked. The neon lights still shine, but behind the facade, the city of chance is facing the harsh reality of what happens when the odds finally turn against you. Number 6, Phoenix, Arizona. Once the shining star of the Sunbelt boom, Phoenix is cooling far faster than anyone anticipated. Just 2 years ago, it was celebrated as a model for migration and growth. Thousands of families from California and the Midwest moved in, fueling record construction and skyrocketing rents. Developers scrambled to keep pace, and entire new suburbs in Chandler, Glendale, and Mesa seemed to spring up overnight, promising prosperity and stability. By 2025, however, that optimism has turned into an oversupply problem. Over 30,000 new units came onto the market in a single year, but demand hasn't kept up. Average rents have fallen 12%, and landlords are pulling out all the stops to attract tenants, offering free months, furnished move-ins, and even prepaid utilities. Apartment complexes that once had waiting lists are now begging for occupants. Though the skyline appears lively, the city's finances are under severe strain. Insurance and maintenance costs have soared, and investors who purchased luxury buildings at pandemic peaks now owe more than their properties are worth. It's not just renters who are feeling the pressure. Phoenix's job market is tightening too. High interest rates and slowing migration have stalled corporate expansion, leaving fewer workers to fill the growing housing supply. From downtown Phoenix to the far reaches of the East Valley, landlords are learning a hard lesson. Growth without balance always ends badly. By 2025, Phoenix isn't just cooling, it's undergoing a correction. A city built for 10 million now faces the reality of serving 8. The dream of endless growth has finally met a wall, and the consequences are only beginning to unfold.
Number 5. Dallas, Texas. For years, Dallas seemed invincible. Corporations relocated en masse, young professionals moved into uptown areas, and suburban development expanded as far as the eye could see. Developers and investors praised it as Texas's economic powerhouse, confident that growth would continue endlessly. But by 2025, that confidence is starting to falter. Rents in Uptown, Plano, and Frisco have dropped 10%, and Class A vacancy rates are now at their highest point in a decade. The skyline still shines, but behind those glass towers, landlords are feeling the pressure. The reason is straightforward: supply outpaced demand. Between 2021 and 2024, tens of thousands of new apartments hit the market just as renters began tightening their budgets. Inflation has cut into disposable income, interest rates remain extremely high, and many prospective tenants are moving back home or sharing space with roommates. Landlords are offering every incentive imaginable: free utilities, covered parking, and even reduced rent to bring tenants back. Investors who once counted on steady cash flow are now facing losses as insurance premiums and property taxes eat into profits. The city that once seemed like a symbol of endless prosperity is now trapped in a difficult cycle: too much luxury, too little affordability. Even Dallas's thriving corporate sector isn't shielding the rental market this time. Hiring freezes in tech and finance have slowed the arrival of new renters, while longtime residents are being priced out of neighborhoods they helped build. From above, the city still gleams, its iconic skyline lighting up the Texas night. But at street level, the reality is changing. The city that once epitomized unstoppable growth is learning a tough lesson. Even in Texas, a market can run out of steam. Number 4. Boise, Idaho. Boise was once hailed as the pandemic's golden city, a small mountain town that seemed to offer America's housing miracle. When lockdowns hit, Boise welcomed an influx of remote workers. People arrived from San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland, bringing cash offers, fierce bidding wars, and hopes of a slower, simpler life. Home prices soared, rents skyrocketed, and developers rushed to keep pace with what felt like never-ending demand. By 2025, however, that momentum has faded, and the city is feeling the downturn. Rents have dropped 13% year over year, and vacancy rates are climbing faster than anywhere else in the Mountain West. Downtown apartments that once rented in days now remain empty for months. Developers who built hundreds of upscale complexes during the boom are now stuck with excess inventory, desperately seeking tenants who can actually afford the units. The city's core workforce, teachers, nurses, service employees, never earned Silicon Valley-level salaries. They watched rents pass $2,000 a month and then saw the California newcomers leave. As the wave of remote work recedes, Boise's inflated housing market is stranded.
Even surrounding suburbs, Meridian, Nampa, and Eagle, are feeling the impact. Construction projects are paused mid-build, materials sit unused, and investors who once envisioned endless profits are now selling properties at a loss. Local coffee shops and restaurants that thrived on out-of-town customers are cutting hours or shutting down. Landlords are reducing rents by $300, $400, or even $500, offering free months and upgrades, yet units still remain unoccupied. The skyline that once represented rapid growth now appears frozen in time. Boise's story is both poignant and painful. A city that symbolized escape from big city chaos now serves as a stark reminder of what happens when the escape ends and reality returns.
Number 3. Seattle, Washington. For the first time in more than a decade, Seattle's skyline reflects uncertainty. After years of nonstop growth, rents climbing, cranes filling the horizon, and tech money driving an unstoppable housing boom, 2025 has brought a reckoning. Rents have dropped 10%, and the towers that once represented prosperity now stand as stark reminders of vacancies. Layoffs at Amazon, Microsoft, and numerous startups have decimated the city's high-income renter base. Downtown buildings that once had long waiting lists are now offering cash incentives and free rent to attract tenants. In neighborhoods like Capitol Hill, South Lake Union, and Belltown, luxury apartments are advertising discounts that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. Even in the suburbs, Bellevue, Redmond, and Kirkland, the trend is the same. Renewals are falling, tenants are leaving, and units are stacking up. Developers who once relied on constant demand are now seeing entire projects delayed or abandoned, leaving half-finished structures scattered across the skyline, like silent monuments to overconfidence. The shift isn't only financial, it's psychological. The pandemic changed how people live and work, and many who once chased Seattle's prestige are now opting for smaller, more balanced lives in cheaper states. The migration isn't massive, but it's steady, and each family that leaves removes stability from the market. Landlords are no longer in control. Tenants are negotiating, demanding flexible leases and lower rents. Seattle's glass towers, once symbols of innovation, now sit partially empty, reflecting the clouds hanging over the city's uncertain future. In 2025, the skyline still glimmers through the mist, but beneath that glow lies fragility, not from earthquakes, but from an economy realizing that even tech-driven dreams have limits.
Number 2, San Francisco, California. If any city represents collapse, it's San Francisco. Once the crown jewel of American innovation, the city's rental market has unraveled into something barely recognizable. Rents have fallen 15% year over year, and downtown vacancy rates have broken all previous records. Luxury towers that once commanded $4,000 a month now sit empty at $3,000 with incentives. The departure of tech workers never reversed, and remote work has become a permanent fixture. Downtown, once buzzing with startups and ambitious professionals, has transformed into quiet streets of glass and steel. Entire blocks feel like ghost corridors, dotted with a few lease signs that now blend into the scenery. Landlords who once enjoyed passive income are now pleading for tenants. Property taxes, maintenance, and insurance costs have doubled, wiping out profits. Investors who bought at the market peak are trapped, unable to refinance without losing millions. Beyond the numbers lies perception, the one asset no city can afford to lose. Rising concerns over crime, homelessness, and quality of life are pushing renters away, with many relocating to Sacramento or Austin for more space, safety, and peace of mind. Restaurants, boutiques, and galleries that once gave the city its character are closing, leaving a cultural void that makes San Francisco feel smaller and emptier than ever. Even the city's renowned tech identity is fading as companies move headquarters to cheaper hubs. The irony is stark. The city that once set the nation's housing benchmark is now showing just how far the market can fall. San Francisco's decline isn't temporary, it's transformative. It's a lesson written in glass and concrete, a clear warning of what happens when innovation forgets sustainability.
At number 1, New York City, the Empire City, is finally showing signs of strain. For generations, its rental market seemed untouchable. No matter the economic turbulence, demand always bounced back. But in 2025, that long-standing belief is fading. Average rents in Manhattan have dropped 12%, while Brooklyn and Queens have fallen as much as 15%. For the first time in decades, tenants hold the advantage, and landlords are scrambling to respond. Incentives have returned. Free rent, waived deposits, and even luxury upgrades are being offered to fill units. Developers overbuilt between 2021 and 2023, assuming endless wealth would keep towers full. Instead, those sparkling high-rises now overlook half-empty streets. Corporate layoffs across finance, media, and tech have weakened the city's high-income renter base. International buyers, once a key engine for Manhattan real estate, have pulled back amid global instability and rising taxes. Even the ultra-wealthy are cutting back. Luxury units on Billionaires Row are being repriced by hundreds of thousands, while mid-market landlords face crushing refinancing rates. Smaller landlords now face whispers of foreclosure. Meanwhile, younger professionals who once paid anything for a Manhattan studio are moving to cities like Charlotte, Nashville, and Philadelphia. The culture, energy, and pace of the city remain, but fewer people can afford the price of entry. New York's decline isn't sudden, it's measured, a slow contraction as the city adjusts to its limits. For the first time in living memory, even New Yorkers are confronting the unthinkable. The empire of rent has reached its ceiling. The skyline still shines, but beneath that glow lies a new reality where ambition finally meets exhaustion. The city that never sleeps pauses, if only briefly, to catch its breath. Across the United States, a quiet shift is underway. Tenants are regaining control. The era of bidding wars, blind applications, and aggressive rent hikes is ending, replaced with vacant units, falling prices, and stressed landlords. But this is more than a price correction. It's a cultural change. Millions of Americans are reconsidering whether renting or owning makes sense in a world where costs outpace wages. Developers built luxury housing, renters sought livable spaces, investors chased profits, and families wanted stability. Now, the reckoning has arrived. Some cities will bounce back, others may shrink. The lesson is clear. Housing markets cannot defy gravity forever. You've been watching Beyond the Cities, your source for cinematic explorations of America's biggest transformations. If this breakdown was eye-opening, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video, because today's rental market shifts are only the beginning. And as always, the numbers tell the story.